pegboard and we've put our ends on it, our bosses have decided that they need another peg in this pegboard. It's just too boring the way it is. So what we're going to do is we are going to make a triangle peg, and we are going to put a spot for that triangle peg in our pegboard. So what we're going to do then is start out by making a new part file. So we're done with our assembly. We're going to go back to File, New, and we're going to go back to a standard part. We're going to create that part. All right. So it says we need an equilateral triangle peg 1 inch high and 3 inches long. Now, if we look at equilateral triangles, they are the same length on each side of the triangle, and it needs to be 1 inch high. So I'm going to start a 2D sketch. I'm going to start on the XY plane. Now, the way I'm going to make my triangle is I'm going to actually have a line that is 1 inch high. Okay, there's my line. I'm going to dimension it. I'm going to make it 1 inch high. Make it back in the center now. Okay. Let's make that back small enough. Okay. Now, that's the height of my triangle. Now, if each side is supposed to be equal, we have 90-degree angles for this center part, and each of these two angles is going to be 30 degrees. So I'm going to draw another line coming down here, and I'm just going to let it intersect right there. Okay. Click OK. Now, in an equilateral triangle, the angle from our midpoint here to this line here is going to be 30 degrees. So I'm going to dimension it to 30 degrees. Okay, it's close, but let's make it 30 degrees. Okay. Now, we need a line that finishes our half the triangle. So we're going to come here, put a line here, and we're going to connect it to right there. Click OK. Now, I actually seem to have part of my triangle is hanging out of the edge here. So we're going to trim that off. So I'm going to say trim, and I'm going to click on here. It's dotted. It'll go away. Okay, now I have half of my triangle. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in the other half of my triangle the same way. I'm going to take a line. Okay, get off my trim, take a line. I'm going to come down to the other side. Okay, click OK. And I can actually just go ahead, instead of having to do the trim, take another line, come up. And you see when it turns green on the dot there, that means it's actually connected to the other point. So now those points are connected. Let's make our angle here from here to here. Let's make this 30 degrees as well. Okay, now we have an equilateral triangle. Now that we have that triangle, we can actually take this center line out by highlighting it, clicking and we should be able to delete it. Actually, we're still in dimension. So now let's highlight it. Okay, and now we can hit delete, and it vanished. Okay, I'm going to finish my sketch now. Now I've got my equilateral triangle. Each side is 1 inch, the height is 1 inch and it's 3 inches long. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to extrude it to 3 inches. Okay, change that to 3. Home, and boom, we have our triangle. So we're going to go ahead and save that file. Come on, save as. And we're going to name it triangle for our triangle peg. And we're going to save our part. Okay, now we need to make a spot for that triangle peg in our pegboard. So if you notice in here, we've got our pegboard in our assembly, and it has a space for the circle and for the square. Well, we need to put a triangle in the middle. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that file with the pegboard. I'm going to open. I'm going to go to my drive, and I'm going to get my pegboard part. Okay, so we're going to open that up, and there's my pegboard part. So what we're going to do is we are going to put the triangle inside the pegboard. Okay, now we want to keep the pegboard the same length. So what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to work with the sketch. So let's take a look at a sketch that has the circle and the square in it. That's sketch 2. So we're going to make it visible. And then we're going to do this. We're going to right click on it and go Edit Sketch. So here's our sketch. Now we're going to need to remove this constraint here. So we delete that constraint because that tells it how far to the side it goes. The same thing with this constraint. Okay, where is that delete? There it is. Okay, so now we're going to need to move the circle over and the square over so that we can fit our triangle in. Now, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to just scoot them over by probably about a half an inch. So I'm going to make my dimension from here to here. I'm going to make it 1.25 inches. And then I'm going to make my dimension from here to here 1 inch. Okay, now I have room to put my triangle in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my triangle just like I did for when we did the peg part. I'm going to take a line and I'm going to go straight up and down. Okay. Right click on it, click OK. I'm going to dimension that line to 1 inch. And then I'm going to put in my other lines here. Okay. And I'm going to dimension these in a minute. I'm going to constrain this so that it's horizontal. So I'm going to take my horizontal constraint, click on here. There, it's horizontal. That helps. And then I'm going to dimension, and I'm going to make this 30 degrees. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. See, and it doesn't matter if I make that even because I can always constrain it to the horizontal and it'll come down just fine. Now let's make sure our angles are correct. Not quite, 30 degrees. Okay, now I can click out of my dimension tool, take away the center. Now, if you notice, this is not perfectly aligned. Okay, so what we're going to do is, since it's 1 inch tall, we're going to make sure that this edge here to here is 1 inch. And this bottom point to this bottom point is also 1 inch. Okay, now we have 1 inch and 1 inch there. However, we need to make sure that this center point is halfway between this side and this side. Now, our distance here is 5 3/4 inches. So half of that, we're going to have to do some mathing. Okay, so 5 3/4 inches divided by 2. And let's go ahead and just do some quick mathing here. So 5.75 divided by 2 is equal to 2.875. Okay, so now I can make my distance here from here to here. Oh, I'm really close, 2.875. Okay, now I have equal distance from here to here and here to here. Now I'm going to click Finish Sketch. And now I'm going to extrude my hole. So what I'm going to do is go Extrude. I'm going to pick my triangle spot. I'm going to go backwards there, click OK, and we're done. Now, I really don't like how that does not appear to be centered in the middle of my circle. So actually, I'm going to go back up to this extrusion and Sketch 2. I'm going to edit it. Even though that's in the middle, I really feel like I should maybe move the square over a little more to make it centered. So let's change that to 0.75, move the square over. Okay, now I'm a little happier with where we're at. That probably should have been the number we used to begin with, but it just took me looking at it to see that we didn't have that correct. So we finish the sketch. You can File, Save, and it will save the file. Now, here's the interesting part. Now that we have that, we can go back to our pegboard and then we can update our pegboard. And then we can see where the triangle is. If you notice on our pegboard, just because we did this, now our triangle is in there. So now we'll finish all you have to do is finish the constraints. We will place a triangle peg and go from there.